or should I say Guten Tag, Guten Abend.
And hi, I'm Archit Deshadri, and I will not attempt any German just yet.
We're right outside the German embassy, and we're here to get you all the latest about the German elections. Booths will close at 6 p.m. and we're soon going to know who the next German Chancellor is.
We're going to be talking to guests here and talk about the international issues, the domestic issues, and how India may be impacted by the next German Chancellor.
For the next 2.5 hours, we're going to get you all that there is to be covered about the German elections live from the German embassy in New Delhi.
Continuous coverage only on WION.
Keep watching.
And well, since 8 a.m. in Germany, Germans began casting their votes in Europe's most anticipated election. Early signs indicate that there is a surge in voter turnout this year. So far, most of the opinion polls are predicting that Angela Merkel will return to the Chancellor's office. But it remains unclear who will she pick as a coalition partner. However, many experts are predicting that the far right will make a comeback into the German parliament this year. All right, and to talk more about this, I have with me in the studio Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, former ambassador to Germany. In fact, he's just returned in April this year, and he's also written a book on Germany. Thanks, Ambassador Singh, so much for joining us. Everybody's talking about Angela Merkel's comeback, fourth term as a German Chancellor. But is that the big story that you see coming out of the German elections, or is it the conundrum that she'll follow in terms of getting the coalition partners?
Well, I think both are right. Because the fact that Angela Merkel is going to be back, which now seems to be a poll certainty, I think is a very important message. Because still just a few months ago, Europe was in ferment. And people thought Europe is turning strongly to the right and the leaders could be toppled. So that certainly the wave seems to have stemmed. But you're right, it is not only the return of Merkel, but Merkel in what form? And that, I think, is more important than the return of Merkel at this stage.
Right. Ambassador Singh, we'll take a brief moment over here and take a quick look at who are the candidates in this German election. Of course, there's Angela Merkel, there's Martin Schulz, but there are many others who are vying for the Chancellor's post or for the numbers in this election to get into the coalition.
A coalition, that's for sure. And with the kind of black tower Chancellor Angela Merkel's CDU-CSU ruling combined can boast of on this graphic, it's near certain that the charismatic Iron Lady of Germany will be sworn in Chancellor for a record fourth term. But who are the other candidates vying for the position? Let's take a look. Chancellor Angela Merkel's Christian Democratic Union CDU is represented in all states or Länder of Germany except one. It rules Germany in a combine with its cousin party, the Christian Social Union, which is present only in the southern Free State of Bavaria. And the parties are in a grand coalition with their big rival, the Social Democrat Party, at the centre. Consequently, the CDU-CSU Union, as it is referred to, has two candidates for Chancellor, Angela Merkel of the CDU and Joachim Herrmann of the CSU. The SPD's candidate for Chancellor is Martin Schulz. The 62-year-old bookseller joined the Social Democrats at the age of 19. After triumphing over alcoholism, he put in a stint as a mayor and was later elected to the European Parliament, where he first represented the SPD for 8 years and stayed on for another 5 as the president of the EP. Martin Schulz speaks 5 European languages and is an avowed supporter of the European Union. Christian Lindner, he's the young hip face of a party that was ignominiously shunted out of parliament at the last election. The Free Democrats, and with a catchy new campaign and a candidate to match, the FDP is not only expected to make the 5% hurdle this time, but may even find itself in a coalition with Chancellor Merkel's CDU. Lindner is 38 and a graduate of political science who more than knows how to work the media. He's married to the deputy editor-in-chief of Europe's largest daily. The Greens of both erstwhile East and West Germany come together in this coalition. In environment-conscious Germany, the party will make it into parliament but will remain, for a lack of enterprise and new ideas, at the bottom of the heap. And like with other twin groups, there are two aspirants for the Chancellor's post. There's Katrin Göring-Eckardt, a theologist, and there's Cem Özdemir, a teacher of Turkish origin who joined the Greens at 16 and became a German citizen at age 18. Theirs will be the most controversial debut of all, but enter the parliament they will, beating all smaller parties, some say even the FDP. Right-wing Alternative für Deutschland, Alternative for Germany, will be fielding 77-year-old lawyer Alexander Gauland and the young and outspoken Alice Weidel. It is no coincidence that both right-wingers are from former East Germany, where a distrust of foreigners, specifically Muslims, runs high and where the AfD enjoys its strongest support base. And finally, the left. The German economy is on the upswing. Exports are booming. Unemployment is down. There are other problems, of course, but surveys still show that Germany seems in no mood for socialism right now. The twin outfit comprising of former East and West German leftists are expected to make it to parliament, but will languish right at the bottom. Their candidates are former social scientist Dietmar Bartsch and the erudite graduate of literature Sarah Wagenknecht. Padma Rao, WION.
All right, so these were the candidates. Let me go across to Ambassador Singh now. Ambassador Singh, many would say this is the most drab election in recent times that we've seen. You had the US election, which was very exciting. Then you had Brexit, another political event that was very exciting. But this, apart from the far-right candidate walking out, storming out of a debate, nothing much seems to be happening over here. Looking at the candidates, many say that even though Merkel might win, Christian Lindner of the Liberal Democrats, he might actually, if things work out, he might actually be the new foreign secretary, and that might be a great, post.
Victory for the CDU led by Merkel really means being able to shed the SPD and form a coalition with people of their own choice.
Right.
And a victory for the SPD means, can they form a team with the left and the Greens, like they do in, I think, 3 other landers at the moment. Anything short of this is not a real victory. And they'll have to then work together in permutations and combinations. You did mention the fact that the Free Democrats would most likely partner the CDU and demand what you said, the foreign secretary's post. Traditionally, in German coalitions, the post of the foreign minister has gone to the coalition partner.
Right.
As a result, I haven't seen a CDU foreign minister for so many years. But I have a feeling that if this time the Free Democrats came on, they would more look for the finance minister's post than the foreign minister's post, because today, where Europe is concerned, the German finance minister plays a much bigger role than the foreign minister.
That's an interesting point that you made, Ambassador Singh. In fact, WION is reporting live from the German consulate in New Delhi as well. Let me quickly try and go across to my colleague Archit Seshadri. Archit, what's the buzz there? Voting will close in just a couple of more hours and we'll start getting trends.
Absolutely, Senna, in about 2 hours, the polls will close in Germany around 9:30 here in New Delhi. So the countdown is on. It is the final stretch, if you'd like to call it. And we've been here at the embassy in New Delhi, and for the last few hours, it has slowly but steadily been packed. A lot of people coming in, Indians, those who live here from Germany who call it home, have sort of gathered here to chat politics and enjoy their beer and their bratwurst. In fact, I'm now joined by ORF's, we're joined by a guest here, Britta Peterson, who's lived in Delhi for almost a decade now. What do you think is going to happen in this election? What are the important issues on hand?
Well, I mean, it seems all that the German Chancellor Angela Merkel will be re-elected, obviously. That's what everybody is expecting. But I think everybody is also worried about the right-wing extremist party that's called Alternative for Germany, AfD, because it seems that for the first time after the end of World War II, we will have a right-wing extremist party in the parliament. We still hope that's not going to happen, but if we can trust the polls, it will happen. And they have already influenced politics in Germany to some extent, especially when it comes to the refugee crisis and the whole question of immigration, where all the parties have moved to the right under the constant pressure from this group.
And the German voting process is a little bizarre. It's a little different. Walk us through that. How unique is it? Is it complicated? Explain to our audience what exactly people are voting for. I understand there's a couple of different parts.
Well, it's actually not that complicated. It's actually a proportional voting system, which has a speciality because you actually vote, you give your main vote you give for one party, and then you give another vote for a specific candidate in your neighborhood. And there is a bit of a complicated process how to tally these two votes, because it's not a 100% proportional vote. For example, if you have, if one of the candidates gets a direct mandate to get into the parliament, and you have more people who are getting directly voted into the parliament, then there is a mathematical formula how to tally it with the percentage of that the parties get. It's called the WION system. It's a bit complicated. But usually it has some effect, but I don't think that it is so relevant, actually.
A lot of the polls are indicating that it could be Angela Merkel that would come back again as Chancellor. What are you hearing here with the German population here in India? What's the chatter like? Do you believe Angela Merkel will continue being the Chancellor for the next 4 years?
Well, I think that's almost without a doubt, because her party has been leading in the last, well, actually since the election campaign started, the party has been leading. It's come down a little bit to 36-37% now, but that's still leading by a large margin before the next party, which is the Social Democratic Party. The main question is actually who she will form a coalition with. And that's interesting indeed, because what we had so far was a coalition between the two biggest parties, the Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats. And that is always a problematic constellation, because people are having the feeling that there is no really an alternative to vote for. The whole political spectrum under Angela Merkel has moved to the left. And that is one of the reasons why this right-wing extremist party has become so strong, that people feel that they don't have much of an alternative, and they would like, actually, if they are unhappy with the government, they would like to show it, and that's why many people are ready to give the vote to them. But I would also say that there are, of course, two other parties that have a chance to get into the government, and that is, of course, the Green Party and the Liberal Party, that has been out of the parliament for the last 4 years, because in the last elections they were not performing well enough. So they will be, most probably, they will be getting around 10%. So there is a chance that they become part of the government.
All right, we'll have to wait and watch until about 2 hours, until the polls close. Certainly the atmosphere here is all about politics. People anxiously waiting. In fact, in a short while from now, there's going to be a debate, a discussion between German and Indian leaders.
All right,
Archit.
Thanks so much for joining us there. It's interesting, the guest there with Archit talking about the procedure of the German election, starting out by saying it's simple, but then she realized it was indeed complicated. We at WION have tried to break it down for you, the election process in Germany. Take a look.
It's a big Sunday in Germany. What's happening? Election of Germany's 19th Bundestag, or its parliament. And when? The polling booths are going to be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday, the 24th of September. And how many voters? Well, the eligible voters total about 61.5 million, and that's down by 400,000 since 2013. And how many seats? There's a total of 598 seats, 299 earmarked for the districts and the rest for political parties. And why do the Germans have 2 votes each? The first vote is to choose a district candidate. The second is to choose a political party. And must the 2 votes go to the same party? No. And what does it take to make it to German parliament? The parties must win at least 3 district votes, known as the first vote, or at least 5% of the overall second vote. And what happens next? 299 candidates with the maximum district votes will enter parliament directly, while parties will receive seats proportionate to their win percentage. For example, if a party wins 50% of the total number of votes cast, then it gets 50% of 299 seats. And what's an overhang? If a party wins 110 district seats and 100 proportionate victory seats as an example, it gets a total of 110 seats. But what about the others? Other parties get levelling seats. In this case, each an additional 10% of their victory percentage. And what's unique? That the German parliament can be larger or smaller than 598 seats given the overhang and the levelling. Padma Rao, WION.
Right, here with me in the studio is Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, former ambassador to Germany. Ambassador Singh, it's interesting to note about the challenges of that Angela Merkel now faces. Her economy is doing well, her relations with France are well, even as Brexit negotiations are going on. If she comes back to power, apart from getting together her coalition, the one that she can work with, what's going to be top on her agenda?
I think she will need to reinvent herself. After all, she has very clearly reinvented herself as a candidate. 6 months ago, her campaign looked tired and the SPD looked on top. But she has slowly clawed back and shown that she can do things in a fresh manner. So people today have a renewed sense of confidence in her. This renewal needs to go to a wider German renewal. So this is where the coalition comes in. Will you have a new coalition which will contribute to a new education system, a new digitization, a new investment in infrastructure, for instance, and better rights for people, particularly better opportunities for young people, for women, all of which she has shown positive signs of doing.
Right. All right. In fact, we're on senior foreign editor Padma Rao. She's also at the German consulate in New Delhi. Padma, thanks so much for joining us. What's the buzz over there? Also, a point that we are trying to talk about over here is the impact of the German election in case Merkel retains or she stays in office. It means a more stable Germany, no change in the status quo. How does that help India? And also, what are people telling you there?
Absolutely, and I'm standing here with Dr. Klaus Voll, who's a senior academic, a social scientist, who has lived in India since 1983, so he's an old India hand, and he would be the perfect person to answer that question. Dr. Voll, welcome to WION. Yeah. How are things likely to change depending on the outcome of the election in Germany?
Yeah. What I expect is actually a diversification of the party system. We will have finally, as it looks like, 7 different political parties. That means a reduction of the dominant forces. Even the CDU, which is supposed to win, will have less percentage. And it is highly interesting that right from the CDU, there is the emergence of a right-wing party, Action for Germany. What is very sad to a certain degree is the decline of a social democratic party, which once upon a time under chancellors like Willy Brandt could reach 48% of the vote and is supposed now to be reduced to 20 or 22%. So this is a shift in the political party system, and it will be not easy perhaps to form an alliance after the verdict.
Right. We just heard from our guest in the studio, who is the former ambassador to India, to Germany, that Chancellor Merkel would have to reinvent herself. How do you see that? In what way would she or should she reinvent herself?
I don't know. This might be very difficult because allegedly she social democratized the CDU, and to go back or to become closer to the right-wing positions, which are also existing within the CSU in particular, but also the CDU, would be a kind of symbolic defeat. So she was quite sturdy, and I mean her popularity is still very high, contrary to the candidate of the Social Democrats. So I doubt if she can really reinvent herself.
But she already has done that to a great extent, to her benefit, as you were saying. Dr. Fall, what is on everyone's minds we are in India. What is, let's say, we're looking at a CDU-FDP, possible CDU-FDP coalition, or we're looking at the old guard, the CDU-SPD coalition, which is more or less ruled out because the SPD has said it does not want to go, would rather be in the opposition because, as you said, Chancellor Merkel has stolen some of their thunder. But how is either coalition likely to affect Indo-German relations? And you're an old India hand, you know what they've been like over the years.
I am personally a little bit skeptical still. People here in the country assume that the relations are on top. Prime Minister Modi said we are made for each other. But if I'm not incorrect, economic relations in a longer review are stagnating. And I personally would wish, I'm critical vis-à-vis Germans in this regard, would wish a real curiosity of the Germans present in India to see India as an interesting project where one could use all the expertise existing in Germany. But basically, Indian foreign policy is focused on the strong nation states. If this is a good attitude is another question. They often don't understand the European Union functioning. But I would say it could strengthen. Now we have two ladies as defense ministers. I had the privilege some years back to speak to India's new defense minister. So could be at a personal level that the relations will improve. But I would say India deserves more attention from Germany than in the past.
Very last question. What about the AFD, the right-wing party? Do you think their rise, and they are entering parliament? I spoke to them 2 days ago. They said India is not going to be affected. We need IT talent. We're speaking about somebody totally different. What do you think about their rise, and how is that likely to impact India?
Yeah, well, I mean, might be some of the positions are not so far away from what the RSS and parts of the BJP are propagating. And I don't see an immediate effect, no aggressiveness against Indians, for instance. But the rise of the AfD has crippled the attempts of former SPD chairman Gabriel to stitch a coalition with the Left Party and the Greens. So insofar there is a shift to the right, might be following a certain global pattern. But personally I would say that the AfD is a danger for Germany, also for its foreign relations. And one can only hope that it can be contained. I mean, there are different prognoses. It's too early to say which strength they will really gain.
All right, there WION's senior foreign editor Padma Rao talking in the German consulate to experts over there. With that, we will be getting you live coverage of the German elections, which continues. Our special broadcast starts at 9 p.m. In fact, thanks so much, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. He will be with us during that special broadcast. With that, we move on now.